Hey, what's going on guys? JayzTwoCents here, and it is almost June, which means in most places it's starting to get pretty freaking hot, which is kind of ironic considering right now in Southern California at the moment of making this video, it is cold and it is windy and it is rainy. And we are not used to this in California. It's like a state of emergency around here. The Octane Gaming Gear combo from Cooler Master features 7 backlighting colors, turbo mode, a Vago 3050 optical sensor, along with 4 levels of DPI adjustment. Now you can pwn noobs without pwning your wallet. Click the link in the description to learn more. So with summer right over the horizon, we're going to be taking a look at the new GXP cooler for graphics cards from AlphaCool. Yeah, that does actually say AlphaCool, not OCool, because that's kind of like the alpha symbol. Anyway, the goal of this, in fact, when we first started talking about this last year, and I did an article over on the webpage, was the fact that they were reaching out to the audience, asking people to, if you want a free block, send in your custom graphics card, and they would make a block for it and sell it to the public, and they would give you one for free. So they really reached out to the consumers to find out which graphics cards were needing to be supported. So they came up with a spreadsheet, and then they pretty much tried to cover every single graphics card on the market when it came to, you know, the last couple of generations. So if you guys were looking for things like, you know, GTX 760 4GB cooler, it wasn't easy to find a full cover water blocks for those because it just wasn't worth it to companies like EK or Bits Power or SwiftTech or Coolants to make these blocks for these one-off lesser frequent cards. So with all that said, let's go ahead and kind of turn the camera and get in close with the block. We'll do an unboxing and we'll talk a bit about the quality of it and really how this thing is designed and what makes it really kind of different. It's not your standard full cover water block, and we'll show you why here in a minute. So go ahead and cue that transition. Now this particular block we're looking at here is for the GTX 970, and this is for the G1 Gaming from Gigabyte. Now I do wish that their naming convention made a little more sense, because this is actually the MO3 model, which you wouldn't know what the heck MO3 is unless you go and look at their little chart, and trust me, their chart is not exactly the easiest to read. So calling it the GTX 970 G1 Gaming full cover water block from AlphaCool would have made a lot more sense. But whatever, you guys will have to, there's MO1, MO2, MO3, MO4, MO5. So you guys are gonna have to just learn what those are. Anyway, once you open it up, pretty standard packaging here. And look at that, a backplate. A backplate that is actually included with the block. That's not very common. You've got all your pre-cut thermal pads. This is kind of a big deal considering thermal pads, typically you have to cut them yourself, but check this out. They actually take all the guesswork out of it by giving each thermal pad packaging here its own little color for reference in the manual. We'll talk about that a little bit more in the future here. You also get a little package of thermal grease or thermal compound, an Allen key, 2 different size Allen keys, and all of your installation screws, some nice soft foam to protect your investment, and of course, the block itself. Now the instructions here are a full page with all of the parts itemized out. They actually tell you all the different thermal pads you get, as well as the color of the thermal pad here on the manual corresponds with the different baggies that you have here. And you have nice full color illustration here in multiple languages showing you step by step how to install the block. Now, we're not going to actually be installing this block on a card today because the 970 G1 Gaming that I have is already being utilized in the Parvin build, but that's okay. That's not going to stop us from showing you how all the rest of this works out. And all the other information here is all warranty type stuff. And again, you have multiple languages here. It's in English, it's in German, and it is in, what is that, French? I believe that's French. So here is the backplate right here, which is included with the block, that's nice to see because normally you would have to buy this separate, and that's really annoying. So you can see we've got the AlphaCool logo etched right into there, and it is facing the right way. So this is where your power connectors go, and there are the cutouts for your SLI fingers and raised standoffs for all of the screws. Now when it comes to the water block, we have the same grade of aluminum, and we do have each block custom made specifically for the graphics card that it is being installed in. So now we have to do the ceremonious removal of the plastic. Now, as you can see, we have cutouts here for all the different capacitors and things, but we do have raised portions on here that are going to be touching very specific, very strategic points on the graphics card. So this is obviously going to be touching memory right here. This is going to be touching more than likely VRMs back here, and this is going to be touching maybe some more VRMs there. And if the 970 had RAM on the back, I don't recall if it did, they would probably have raised portions on there as well. But obviously the only part that is getting active cooling on this from the block is the GPU itself. Now this core right here, this is very, very similar to, and I'm calling it a core, I don't know exactly what they call it. This is very, very similar to what they sell independently that you could use as a universal graphics card cooler, where it will just mount onto the GPU and then you have to stick on little heat sinks on all the RAMs and VRMs and things to keep it cool. Well, what they've done is they've manufactured the part that everything mounts into. For instance, this part, the GPU cooler mounts into this plate, and the plate is manufactured to meet your graphics card specifications and layout. So they have one part that goes into the middle that's universal, and then what's different is the actual, we'll just call it a cage. It's pretty heavy duty actually. Now this thing also acts as a giant heat sink. So all of these fins here, as you can see, they're going to take the heat, they're going to draw it away from the components, and case airflow is going to provide cooling to VRMs and the RAM as well. So it would have been nice to see it be a full cover block, but then it would have been much more expensive and it would have been much more difficult to manufacture this in a way that would give you more universal support. So when you go ahead and you sandwich this together the way that it actually is meant to be installed, it ends up looking pretty much just like that. So as you can see, it's a very aesthetically pleasing block. Now, when I first was given information about this block and preliminary samples, all of the logos were blue. So I'm really happy to see that these are a nice, just sort of a gray etched color, maybe slightly white, because it's going to look much better in many more builds. But you have nice high quality metal here. It's very weighty. The only blue that you can see right here is in the middle of the GPU block itself, which also has a little bit of a flow indicator built in there. You can't really see it moving, but it does have a flow indicator in there, which will turn as fluid is going through there. So that's very nice to see. It just feels like AlphaCool has really thought out and done a lot of effort on this block. The only downside to it is the amount of metal that is on here. Even though it's a lighter weight metal, aluminum, compared to copper, it's pretty heavy. So you're going to want to keep this in mind when you're installing this on your card, and you want to make sure that GPU sag is not going to be something that you'll be dealing with. Now when it comes to this block, some folks might feel that it's not worth it because of the fact that it doesn't have active cooling for the VRMs and the RAM itself. But that really isn't the case, or it's not going to be something that's that big of a deal unless you're doing high overclocks. And by high overclocks, I don't mean pushing the slider all the way to the right in Afterburner or Precision or whatever you're using. I mean doing unlocked, voltage hacked type overclocks. Then the VRM temperatures might be a little bit of a big deal. But this is going to give you better cooling than any VRM cooling you're currently getting on your graphics card, because most manufacturers are not actually providing VRM cooling. In fact, we've seen that some graphics cards manufacturers are not providing any sort of real VRM cooling. Now we're going to go ahead and drop a screw. We grabbed my R9 290X Matrix Platinum here. Now I've used this card as an example before, but the VRM cooler in this thing is just a tiny strip of billet aluminum that's got a little bit of heatsink built into it, and that's it. There is absolutely no RAM cooling on this thing. The only thing getting any sort of active cooling is the GPU core itself, and then some of the air that's getting pushed down through the fins is touching this little VRM heatsink. But what I have found on this card specifically, and this to be the case on a lot of different graphics cards, not just this 290X Matrix Platinum, is the fact that over time, the VRM starts to get hotter and hotter and hotter, and then you get artifacts and instability because of VRM temperatures exceeding safe limits, even with stock overclocks. Now, what I mean by stock overclocks is, again, anything that is officially supported in MSI Afterburner. But because this card is officially an unlocked card, you can push the thing past stability. It's kind of the nature of the card. So having a nice, huge chunk of metal like this assisting in the aiding in the cooling aspect of the VRMs as well as the VRAM. VRAM doesn't get too hot. That's not really that big of a deal. This is going to be beneficial, especially on a behemoth like this that really is known for pushing VRMs to the limit. So there you go, guys. A lot of people are actually using this. I know some people are going to be upset that I didn't install it and do a full test to see what low temperatures are like, but I just wanted to kind of give you guys an overview of the block and tell you that it's definitely something worth considering. It's not as expensive. A lot of the full cover nickel plated or copper water blocks, which have additional cost for the back plates. I love the fact that AlphaCool has included this very high quality, very well machined, and very uniform and high-end anodizing on this thing. The anodizing on this looks fantastic. So it's definitely something to consider if you're looking to get into water cooling on a budget, and it's going to be beneficial for your graphics card anyway. So there you go, guys. JayzTwoCents. Hope you guys have learned something with today's video. If you're using one of these GPU blocks, make sure you speak up down in the comments so that other people can learn from your experiences. Tell us what you think about it. And as always, guys, follow on social media or any of that stuff, the community forums or whatever, JayzTwoCents.com, if you guys just want to kind of chat and just have more discussion about today's video. But besides that, as always, guys, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Hey, what's going on? JayzTwoCents here, and we're back with another tech video just like I promised in the last bike video thing that we just did.
And Jay always pays his debts.
Sorry, I've been watching a lot of Game of Thrones lately. It's really getting addictive. I just started watching it. May God have mercy on my soul.